going on, y'all? Sorry, I have to adjust this sometimes because I can't tell what it's going to look like until this thing starts. So, let this thing load up real quick. Here we go. I think we're loaded. I think we're locked and loaded. How you guys doing tonight? It's good to see you. Robbie Falk here from 247 Sports, the Starkville Daily News. Thought I'd jump on here tonight. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. Mississippi State men's and women's basketball, baseball going on. Spring practice is taking a little bit of a hiatus during spring break, but good things happening there as well. So we can talk about that stuff too tonight if you want to. We'll talk about whatever you guys want to. This is an open forum. We'll talk about wrestling, music, movies, sports. If you call me names, I might not mention that, but if you want to, you can. I mean, I'm not saying that I would deny any of that. So anyway, if you guys are new here, there's a comment section over there on the right side of your screen, should be, where you can drop in questions, comments, thoughts, whatever you guys want to talk about, and I can see that over there, and we'll be able to act accordingly there. And if you haven't already, please go subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate the support there. For those that are already doing that, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for the support. I like to get on here and talk it up with you guys a little bit and talk some Mississippi State sports, talk about whatever you want to. And of course, every now and then I'll drop in with a reaction video or some press conferences and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff out there that I try to put out here on the YouTube channel for you guys that I feel like is worth it. And of course, it costs you nothing to subscribe. You can subscribe for free, and basically all it does is it notifies you when a video goes up. So just a good resource to have for you if you're looking for a press conference right after the ball game. A lot of people want to see those Chris Lemonis press conferences or player press conferences after baseball. That goes up within like 15 minutes after the press conference. As fast as I can get that loaded, that goes up, and you will get notified that that's up so you can watch that. So anyway, I appreciate you guys if you go ahead and do that. All right, let's start basketball, baby. That's the big story of the day and of the week for the Bulldogs. Men and the women both get in the tournament. And of course, it couldn't be easy. It couldn't just be that they both get in and everybody's happy. There's some upset people that Mississippi State is in the playing game, and I completely get it. I understand. It is frustrating. You finally get back in the NCAA tournament for both teams, and you have to play a game just to get in the field of 64. That's frustrating. But it's a good thing for Mississippi State. They are in the dance. They have a spot at the table. That's all you can ask for, and that's a big step in the right direction in the first year for Chris Jans and Sam Purcell. It wasn't a perfect year for either team. Mississippi State had some opportunities, both in the men and the women's side of things. They had their opportunities, and they missed some chances that would have gotten them out of this position to be in that playing game. But it is what it is. I mean, that's water under the bridge. They both are going to have opportunities on Tuesday and Wednesday night to advance to the first round of the NCAA tournament, and that will be a big deal if they're able to do that. And if they're not able to do that, then it was still a really positive season for Mississippi State, and you've taken a step in the right direction. Anything you get from here is basically gravy for the Bulldogs. So the men will play Pittsburgh on Tuesday night. They're playing in Dayton, Ohio. That game is at 8:10. It's going to be a late night. We're going to have a late podcast, Brian and myself, after that ball game. So drink your coffee if you're not used to staying up late. It could be a late one for you. And then Wednesday night, the women will play. They're going to be playing Illinois. Both teams 11 seeds, by the way. They'll be playing Illinois in the playing game in South Bend, Indiana. And that game is at 6 p.m. So both teams are going to be, the first games, the first couple of games for the men and the women in the tournament. So a lot of people are going to be tuning into that. That's one bright spot from those games. So hopeful to see Mississippi State come out on top there, and that will be a big deal for the programs moving forward. Both coaches are excited, and it's just good to have an opportunity to have a chance to play in this this tournament, even if you're in the play-in game. So with that, I see some questions popping in now. We'll just go ahead and roll into those because sometimes this can be a nice discussion that we have here. So let's go ahead and pop into those. We'll start with Dylan Batia. Such a relief going to the big dance. Is there a better offensive team if this a better offensive team if Iverson Molinar would have returned this year? No doubt. This team probably a top 25 team at this point. I mean, I'm not joking. I mean, you have so many games out there that Mississippi State could have won had they had a better offense. I think that you could have beaten Tennessee at home with a better offense. You could have challenged Alabama at home. They were in that ball game against Alabama at home. They just they couldn't make free throws, and that one slipped away. You probably would have beaten Alabama with the same kind of game with Iverson Molinar on the road. You beat Kentucky, you beat Florida, you beat Georgia. I mean, you had 13 to 16 points per game at the least to this team, and this is a completely different looking team. This team's struggling to score 70 points on most nights. A guy that could give you 15 more points a game, yeah, this team's a top 25 team, probably a 5 or 6 seed in the NCAA tournament at the worst. I mean, that's how close this team is. I've said that all along. This team is so close to being a really, really good team, a competitive team in the top half of the SEC, but they just don't have the offensive guy to kind of push them over the top. You're kind of relying on Tolu Smith and maybe 2 other guys to get you to 65 to 68 points, and the defense has to carry the load. You have a guy like Iverson Molinar, just one guy. I mean, that's how close they are. If you had just one guy that could make 3-pointers consistently, you don't even have to be a huge part of the offense. If you have a guy that can just knock down some shots, this team's completely different. And that's why I'm excited about the prospects of next season. You're adding significantly more offense to this team next year with a chance to have most of this roster back. There's a few pieces that you need to seal up. Tolu Smith, the biggest. You add Tolu Smith back to this roster next year with guys like Trey Fort, Jaquan Scott, Josh Hubbard. This team looks a lot different and probably a fringe top 25 team coming into the season next year. I think people would be really high on that team. Jay in Baltimore, my prediction by midseason will be Drangelo, Landon Gartman, and Bradley Lofton as weekend starters in baseball, with Eintema moving to the midweek start. What say you? I wouldn't be shocked by that. I think that we'll see Cade Smith when he comes back from injury, which I don't think he's far away from getting back. When he gets back, I think he's back into the rotation probably as a Saturday starter, and you'll probably see Mississippi State try to work through that. And if Cade Smith's really good and solid on the weekends, you have a really good rotation, I think. And then Bradley Lofton is your midweek guy who is going to be a really good midweek starter for you. If that's the case, you have 4 really good starters that can give you 6 or 7 innings per start. And then you just piece together everything else. I mean, you have a chance here with baseball, and I don't want to just get out in front of my skis a little bit here and predict anything great is going to happen for Mississippi State. But I just feel like this team can be so much better in the next few weeks with these pitching pieces back. Aaron Nixon, Cade Smith, Pico Cone, those guys, they have an opportunity here to get basically free agents added to a roster that have experience, that have pitched in big games, that have pitched against really good hitters going into SEC play, and they'll be pretty fresh. I mean, this has a chance to be a significantly better pitching team in the coming weeks, and I hope everybody can get healthy, get back in there, and give Mississippi State a lift here. Jason Hanna, was the quarterback from Alabama a surprise? Yes, Flowers, yeah. Oh, I don't know if anybody was just, expecting that one. I know that I was not expecting it. Paul Jones was not expecting it. Nobody keeps up with MSU recruiting like Paul Jones, and he had no idea this was coming until the other night before this was announced. Completely out of left field, but the staff has shown that they kind of work, under the darkness of night a little bit. We don't always know exactly what's going on with this staff behind the scenes, whether it be in the coaching change um, areas whenever they were out there looking for an offensive coordinator and building that staff, or it be in recruiting. Right now, they're keeping a lot of things under wraps, and that was a complete surprise. But really big pickup. I mean, I thought going to Mobile, getting a guy with several Power Five offers. He has an offer from Alabama and teams like that, which I doubt that that's committable, but it just shows you that Alabama has this kid on their radar at the very least. If they're not willing to take him right now, they were willing to throw out an offer and show that he was good enough for Nick Saban to give him a look. And if you're good enough for Nick Saban to give you a look, you're good enough for Mississippi State. So I thought great pickup for State, really athletic because I like his arm. You look at him running around a little bit, but watch the film, watch him throw it around. He can toss it. This is a guy that I think is going to be tremendous in the Kevin Barbay offense, and I really believe that is good for Mississippi State's recruiting class because anytime you get that quarterback locked in early, he's kind of like the centerpiece of your class. He's kind of the guy that everybody gravitates to, everybody wants to be around. We saw that with Chris Parson last year. Chris Parson basically held that class together. And I want to give credit to the coaches too, but Chris Parson was the guy that was contacting recruits. Hey, we want to be Mike Leach's. We want to be known as Mike Leach's last class. That means something to us. Let's make that a point of pride. And I think that's what you can get here with Flowers. I think he's a guy that can kind of hold your class together, pull some guys in that maybe you might not be connected to right now, but really big pickup. And I thought the addition of Joey Jones and Steve Campbell to the staff. These are two veteran college coaches that have obvious ties to that area in Mobile. Steve Campbell obviously comes from the state of Mississippi, coached many years in the state of Mississippi, went to South Alabama. Joey Jones was the head coach of South Alabama when they moved up to Division One. And both of those guys have a wealth of experience. You added them to this class or to this staff, and immediately they get you in the game with a 4-star quarterback from Mobile. They're in the game with 2 or 3 more guys that are really talented players in Mobile that they've gotten to campus. These off the field additions and this coaching staff, I think, has just been super impressive for Zach Arnett, and it's already paying off dividends. And it's not just the guys that are coaching that are doing a lot of work. Daniel Lopez, any smoke in terms of Tolu Smith coming back for an extra year? I don't think any of that's been decided yet. I think he wants to wait and see, how the season goes. And he hasn't really talked to anybody. I've talked to a few people around the program, and there really hasn't been a whole lot of conversations with him about any of that. There have been some other players on the team. I think DJ Jeffries has talked about the prospects of coming back. He hasn't decided yet. Deshaun Davis is still out there. McNair's still out there. So it's one of those deals where I think when the season ends, he'll probably sit down with Chris Jans, probably going to sit down with the Bulldog Initiative and Charlie Winfield, and probably talk about the possibilities of signing an NIL deal. So I got to believe that Mississippi State at least feels like they have a shot here, but he's going to try to test the waters too. And I don't see an immediate threat from the NBA for him, but he can certainly go overseas and earn a good living overseas. It's really going to come down to, does he want to return for one more season, obviously? Does he want to play college basketball for another year? And probably, is it going to be worth it for him to return from a financial standpoint when he can just go ahead and be making a living? And this is a guy that's already, he's going to be graduated by that point. He doesn't need a degree. So, obviously, it would be huge. And I think that's the biggest offseason acquisition for Mississippi State is if they're able to get Tolu Smith, because he completely changes your outlook next year with him on campus. I don't know if you can find another Tolu Smith in the portal. And if you do, you're probably going to have to get a good deal for him to come to school, probably similar to what you would do for Tolu. But you would like to have a guy that's already been here. Tucker Medlin, how much can Josh Hubbard contribute next year? I think still could still be a big piece. Anytime you get a guy that can score like that, can score at all three levels, and I think he can defend as well, he's going to be an option for Mississippi State. I know Chris Jans likes him a lot, likes what he brings to the table on both sides of the ball, and he's a competitor, man. I mean, he's played some of the better teams in the state and some really good teams in the Southeast too, and of course been an AAU circuit and has played some great players. I think that it's not going to be something that overwhelms him if he comes into a game next year and is playing the SEC team. I don't think he's going to be somebody that's really going to be overwhelmed by that. He can help you right away, and I think that he does. I don't know the nature of his impact. I don't know if it's going to be as a guy that's six man or even starting. I don't know if it's going to be that great, but can he give you 5 points a game? Can he come in there and give you 12 points off the bench one night, give you a spark, hit a big shot? I think he can definitely do that. It would not shock me in the least if he came in next year and was a big contributor for Mississippi State as a freshman. Just he has a little different mindset, and he's played a lot of basketball. I mean, he's been playing for MRA for years and years. Competing for a championship every single year. He's played under one of the great coaches in Mississippi high school history, and Richard DeWeese. He's played for Eric Dampier. So I think that he's going to make his impact next year in some form or fashion. I don't see him just being a bench rider. Clint Odom's heading to Dayton. Have fun, Clint. I wish I was heading up there. Should be a fun matchup, I think. LeBron's, do you think Monty Larry ends the season with the same name value for state fans as R.J. Yeager? I think that's very possible. His numbers right now are really good. I wanted to pull them up just to get them accurate, but he's been good at just about everything. He's hit for power. He's hit for average. He's getting on base. He's not striking out very often. He's stealing bases. Hasn't been a liability in the field. Let's see. He's batting .352. His OPS is 1.112, which best on the team. Yep, that's the best. Ross Highfield is ahead of him, but not by much. And Amani's played every game, so that's impressive. So 19 hits, 4 doubles, 3 home runs, 17 RBI, a .593 slug is great. 13 walks to just 4 strikeouts. 4 strikeouts and 54 at bats. That's excellent. I don't think nobody's been better than that. The next closest is Bryce Chance with 7, and then Luke Hancock. And we know how good Luke is. Luke has 8 strikeouts and 52 at bats. 4 and 54 at bats is sick. .519 on base percentage. That leads the team. 8 for 8 stolen bases. Yeah, he's been excellent. I absolutely could see him being every bit as good by the end of the year as R.J. Yeager, and I still don't think R.J. got the respect he deserved from a SEC and national standpoint just because he played for a team that wasn't very good, but just was consistently hitting the baseball, and I think Amani Larry's going to do the same thing. Master Destruction counting on Tolu and Shaq to catch fire and carry them to the Final Four and make my bracket perfect. Oh, you got them in the Final Four? Okay. Nice. They got to have some guys hit some shots. DJ Jeffries, Shaq, Eric Reed, if they're going to throw them up and be wide open, they got to fall. That's State's only chance in this postseason. The defense is going to keep them in games. I don't think they're just going to get run out of the gym. But to get over the hump and win ball games, you got to get hot. I don't know how many teams have made a run in the tournament and not had some players hit some big-time shots from 3. State they can't come out and go 2 for 17. It can't happen. You can't survive that way. Clint, any additional news on Federico being out for Pitt? I haven't seen that. Is that true? Y'all get back to me on that. I have not seen that, but that would be That'd be rough for Pitt. They really don't have a ton of size um, to compete with Tolu in the post. I think Tolu has a chance to have a big day. That would not be good for them. He's 6'11", but kind of a tall, slender guy. He's not really built like Tolu, I guess. Random Yoda, what are the chances we land Camarion Franklin for 2024 football? I would say very low. He seems to have his eyes set on bigger fish. Seems to be one or two of those in Mississippi every year. They got to figure that out. Jay in Baltimore, how do you see the battle for third playing out between Mershawn and Alford? I think it's all Mershawn right now. I mean, there's no reason to move him. It's unfortunate, but Slate just was not playing well at third. It wasn't particularly hitting it well either. Let's see, where was he at? At 229 in the first 13 games. Had a double and home runs. So he wasn't really hitting for power either. And then 291 OBP, he was not getting on base. Striking out a lot. 10 strikeouts, 48 at bats, not terrible, but he just wasn't getting on base. And then his fielding was an issue for Mississippi State. They just had to make a change. 6 errors and 25 chances. I mean, that's too many. And now you got David Mershawn is in there, and he's making plays cleanly, looks fluid at third base. He's just a dirtbag type of guy, and he's hitting the ball. He had 3 hits last week in his first games and getting on base. It's going to be tough to keep him off the field, I think. The golf official. Any leads on who will replace Tolu next year? Hopefully nobody. Hopefully he's returning. But if not, you got to go out there in the portal and find somebody. You got to find somebody of equal value. It can't be a downgrade. I mean, you got to find somebody that's going to be able to come in and be an all SEC type center. That's what I think. Dylan, do you think not adding pitchers from the portal last year set us back some? I do believe Fristow staying an extra year and a healthy Stone Simmons would have helped. Yeah, I don't know about Fristow. I mean, it just never really clicked for him. We'll see if it does on the next level. I don't know if it was ever going to work for him moving forward here. Stone Simmons would definitely help. Brooks Auger would definitely help. Those are 2 big losses for State this year. But, yeah, Nate Dome was a huge addition out of the portal. Tyler Davis right now is not working out as well as you would hope. And I guess that's it. Paul Skeens was a huge, huge miss for State. And I say miss, I mean, they just straight got beat by LSU. It was going to be tough for Mississippi State to overcome what LSU had from a roster standpoint. I think a lot of people got caught up in, the NIL stuff, but that's not as big a factor as you think with Paul Skeens. It was more about their roster. Their roster was significantly more sexy, I guess you could say. And they're contenders. They're national championship contenders, which I think State would have been right back towards the top of the SEC with a Paul Skeens type. You bring in a Friday night starter like that can go 7, 8 innings, strike out 10 to 12 guys, give up like 1 or 2 runs. A guy that's a true ace like Paul Skeens, Mississippi State would be a totally different team. But unfortunately, you weren't able to get that guy. I thought they did a solid job of bringing in talent from this recruiting class. And then, of course, Nate Dome and I think Aaron Nixon can be a similar impact as Nate Dome when he gets healthy. Hopefully that's soon. And we'll see from there. But there's no doubt that was a tough loss for State not getting Paul Skeens. I think it remains to be seen on whether or not the portal has really set them back. But they have added some talent from there. Dylan, any updates on Cade Smith? Still don't know anything concrete. Chris Lamonis doesn't talk about injuries at all until really they're finished. That's when he usually brings it up when the injuries are over, after somebody has surgery or whatever. But during the season and during the injury, we don't hear anything from him. He wouldn't update us at all last year on Landon Sims and Stone Simmons, and their UCL was already torn and they're about to have surgery. So we didn't hear anything about that. We haven't heard anything from Cade Smith on the record, but it appears that him and Aaron Nixon and Pico, maybe even Parker Sinnett, it looks like those guys are kind of close. Some of them have been running down the bullpen. They've been throwing a little bit. Of course, they're in the dugout. I think they're mostly close. I don't think they're serious injuries with those guys. And all of them could help Mississippi State when they're at their best. Master Instruction, what are your thoughts for football next year as far as record? I believe Arnett will be a solid coach in the long term, but what can we expect from year one? I've predicted 9 wins, and I haven't really changed my mind much. I think this defense is going to be really good. I think the offense is going to be exciting for you guys. I've really liked what I've seen from them early in the process. Very intrigued to see what they can do with Mike Wright. Very intrigued to see what they can do getting Tulu the ball in his hands. Intrigued to see the rushing attack. I think State has the weapons in this offense to make a difference next year, and that includes Will Rogers. I think Will Rogers can have a good season as well. Jay, has Ross now secured the catching role full-time with the occasional break by Luke? Hard to keep this kid out of the lineup. I think so. I mean, it's really up to Chris Lemonis. Lately, he's been switching those guys in and out. At the very least, I mean, you got to put him in there to DH or something because he's hitting the ball as well as anybody in the starting lineup. He hasn't played every game. He's played 9 games, which is still a solid sample size. And he's leading the team with 406 among starters. 406 batting average in 9 games for a true freshman. Now, that's going to dip down. He's not going to bat 450. But so far, it hasn't really clicked with him that he's a freshman. You know, he's playing like a veteran. 13 hits, 4 doubles, 4 home runs. His slugging is an insane 906. And it has the highest OPS on the team. So he has been fantastic. Oh, what we got? Dylan, if the pitching struggles continue, do you think Lemonis gets a new pitching coach? I think it's gotten better, actually. I think that they've had. Let me take care of this. Sorry, I had to take care of a spammer there. I think that they've been much better pitching over the last week or so. I mean, the walks are still a problem, and to me, it's obvious that they've been struggling with this. And it's not. I mean, I don't want to make excuses for State because State's the walking more people than most, but it's obvious that they've been struggling with this TrackMan deal that they've got with the umpires are being basically calculated at every single game with the analytics of what a ball and a strike is, and the zone is getting tighter, and the pitch clock probably has a little to do with it too. It changes up your routine a little bit. You're not able to get in the same motion that you've been getting in and go through your routine, so that could possibly be it as well. But they're getting better. But if they don't get better, then you might see a change. It wouldn't shock me at the least. If this team's just definitely not better, that's what's probably going to come. Golf official, is Sam recruiting a 4 or 5 player to replace Jessica Carter? Again, just like Tolu, I mean, you would like to have her back. But yes, I'm sure they will be recruiting somebody in the portal if she's unable to return next season. I think that it's a possibility that she returns, but we'll see. BLB, what do you think of Rick Stansbury leaving Western Kentucky? If he decides to get back into coaching, do you think he would consider returning as an assistant? I think State should reach out to him 3 days ago and ask if he would like to come work in the basketball offices. And I wouldn't put him on the bench. I think that's a little daunting. I don't like the prospects of a former coach sitting next to the new coach, and I don't think Rick would be comfortable with that either. But a special assistant to the head coach, a recruiting coordinator off the court, a guy that's kind of an administrator in basketball, I don't think there's any way that hurts you. I think it does nothing but help you. You have a guy that is a dynamite recruiter in Rick Stansbury. There hasn't been a guy that's been as elite as a recruiter than Rick Stansbury. Somebody said Babe McCarthy the other day. I don't know enough about Babe McCarthy and the people that he was competing with in recruiting to make that kind of judgment. I'm just talking based on what I've seen at Mississippi State so far. So Rick Stansbury got you players that you don't normally get, and got in the game with some guys that you don't normally get in the game with. Of course, he got 4-star talent to Western Kentucky. So it wouldn't hurt to get a guy like that on campus, in my opinion. I think I think that would be an absolute slam dunk for Mississippi State to add a guy like that. Jared Fleming, what's up? Mr. Snuggles. Dylan Batia, Jan's exceeded my expectations this year. What do you think? Absolutely. I had no expectations from an NCAA tournament perspective. I thought that he would be doing a really good job if he got Mississippi State into postseason and the NIT. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't know what to expect. The roster was very suspect to me because you're bringing in a lot of these guys from other schools that either, were role players, or, you had Deshaun Davis. He was considered a facilitator, more of a guy that's going to dish it out than score a bunch of points. He's come up big for you in some games offensively from a scoring standpoint. McNair's has given the Bulldogs a really big lift in the post off the bench. And then you have, Tolu has been healthy. That's been the biggest thing. He absolutely has exceeded my expectations. And then you add in the fact that this team's been as bad as they've been on offense. It's really, really impressive. And a lot of people would turn that around and say, well, why aren't they getting better at shooting threes? Maybe that's a Chris Jans thing. I think this is just kind of a weird deal, and where State just can't hit them. But they're hitting them in practice. They're having no issues with them. I think it's just kind of a mindset thing for them, and I don't know if it's going to be fixed by a coach. But getting them to constantly believe and go out there and defend the way that they do and fight the way that they do, that speaks to Chris Jans. Getting open, getting those good looks from three, running the offensive sets that gets them in position to score, even though they're not finishing, that speaks to Chris Jans too. So I give him a ton of credit for the success that they're having, and this might be one of his worst rosters that he has at Mississippi State. I think it's only going to get better from here. I do believe Jans will hit the portal pretty hard after the season. Yeah, they'll go after some guys. They got a pretty big recruiting class coming in, but they're going to lose some guys too. It's like he continues to say, he isn't here to build a program. He's here to build a team. And that every single year, he's got to build a new team. Whether that be, with 6 transfers or what. I mean, you've got to be able to build a team each and every year. That's the nature of the game now. It's no longer about getting a freshman in here and that freshman is developing over a 3-year period. That's not going to happen anymore. It's, get a guy ready, get him to the pros, or get a guy ready and then he goes to transfer somewhere else and you got to get another guy to replace him. It's going to be very rare that you keep a guy for 4 years at this point. It's going to be weird to see Will Rogers under center some this year. Yeah, he even mentioned he didn't even run under center much at Brandon. I don't know how many times. I don't think he's done it here at all, other than in practice. So he's going to be running some sets under center. They're going to be running under center some. Kevin Barbay talked about that the other day. most of what they run is going to be out of the shotgun, pistol, diamond, things like that. That I don't expect them to get under center a lot, but they will do it, and it is in their arsenal. And the people that think this is going to be like a West Coast offense, they're going to be running the pro style ground and pound. That's not going to happen. That's not going to be what this offense is. But they will get under center and try to run it down your throat every now and then. Try to get a first down on third and fourth and short, something like that, which I personally love. I hate the shotgun from the 1 yard line. Just get under center and run it. Golf official, have you heard who will be our 3 permanent opponents in football? Is it Ole Miss, A&M, and Kentucky? Possibly. That's been thrown around. That's a possibility. Ole Miss and Kentucky for sure, and that third one still kind of up in the air. But that is definitely the team that we've seen the most in these projections. And Ross Dellinger puts out a projection of these permanent opponents. He's probably getting it from someone with influence within the SEC office. Dylan, I feel like Rodgers is going to have a surprisingly big season. Very well could. 4th-year guy, he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think running an offense that is a better fit for him. We won't see them run much read option with him like this offense could be. But, I wouldn't be surprised if he tucks it and runs every now and then. Do you think the 9-3 schedule hurts us more than helps? No, not really. I think that you're going to be playing a Power 5 anyway. And it really just depends on who it is. I mean, if you're playing Alabama and LSU in a schedule, then yeah. But I don't really. It doesn't really scare me because you're going to play it. I get the point from people like I think Mark Keenum has this sentiment that if you play that 9th game, that's going to do nothing but hurt your chances of getting into a playoff. And that's for the entire SEC. That's the way he thinks. That takes away one of your non-conference options, and it gives the SEC another loss. And that could be by somebody that's going to be in the 12-team playoff. So I understand that sentiment. It is going to be a little tougher. That's an extra game that you're playing within this conference. It's a very difficult conference. And I could see both sides of it. Like I said, doesn't really hurt me any. Like I don't really care. That's another really good game that we get to watch on a Saturday. That's not Alabama versus Charleston Southern. I like to watch good games, and that's one more week of that. All right, y'all. Any more questions? Hop in or forever hold your peace. Baseball this weekend at Kentucky for the first series, SEC series of the year. Nichols on Tuesday in Biloxi and Louisiana Lafayette. I will not call them Louisiana on here. I don't care what their administration says. They will always be Louisiana Lafayette. You're not the University of Louisiana. You're not Louisiana. To me, LSU is Louisiana, even though they're Louisiana State. They are the University of Louisiana. And I don't want to be, Robert Kimdichie calling Ole Miss the whatever he called them. Or people that say, the University of Mississippi State. Dylan, I believe Texas and Oklahoma will struggle in this conference. It's not going to be as easy as they think. It hadn't been easy for Texas A&M and Missouri. They've had their moments, but for the most part, it's been worse for them than it was in the Big 12. Although Missouri went to 2 SEC championships, I believe, but that was early, and they haven't been able to compete since. Jay, quick thoughts on the softball team. They've started off really well. That RPI is going to be great. They're going to have a chance to, if they do pretty well in conference play, they'll have a chance to host for the first time in a regional. But they're going to have to take care of business. Conference play has been kind of their issue over the years. They just haven't been able to consistently win in SEC play, and their RPI has been good enough that's got them in the tournament. The RPI should be really good this year. They played several ranked teams. They hosted Oklahoma this past weekend. Lost both of those games, but just playing them made your opportunities better down the road. And this looks like a team that can really compete. And they struggle on the defensive end. Pitching hasn't been great, but the offense has been solid, and they're going to compete. This looks like one of their better teams, I think. Bobby Anthony, what will a successful year be for women's basketball next year, especially if we don't get out of the first round? It just depends on who they get on the roster. I don't know what's going to happen with that. You know, you're losing Asian A. Johnson, Anastasia Hayes, Alana Smith, possibly Jessica Carter. I don't know if she's going to leave or not. If you lose her, I mean, you've lost some huge pieces of this roster, and you're going to have to really nail it in the portal. You got some good players coming in out of the recruiting class, but you need some experienced players. And I think hitting the portal hard over the next couple of months is going to be key. But they got to get back to the NCAA tournament. You need to make an improvement on this year. Even with some roster turnover, you need to be improved next year from what you were this year, and I think they have a chance to do that. Jared, yeah, we talked about Josh Flowers, but yeah, I really like that commitment. Athletic, got a chance to fill out into a nice-looking kid from a physical standpoint. Great arm, has a chance to be a real stud, I think, in this offense. I love that kid. Dylan, do you think we can be more competitive in the LSU series this year? I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. They're going to have a couple of arms that are going to be problems, Paul Skeens especially, and then their lineup's just going to be relentless. It's going to be one of the best lineups in the country this year, if not the best, top to bottom. I'd be shocked if LSU wasn't, number one for most of the year. But a lot of times when you have teams like this that are clear and far away the best teams in the country, at some point they slip up. Maybe that's the time they're slipping up. I don't know. But it's going to be tough. I don't like the matchup for Mississippi State there, especially when the State's pitching staff has been a little shaky. They just haven't been a staff that you think can get through a really talented lineup. And if you're walking guys, you're in big trouble. Oh, all right. Anybody else? All right. Well, we'll shut her down. I appreciate you guys. Full coverage coming up the rest of the week. We got men's and women's basketball coverage. Steve and Mike will be in Biloxi. Steve and myself will be in Kentucky this weekend. So we got a ton of stuff going on. Paul's updating everybody on recruiting, so make sure you're over there. He's had a story today from Josh Hubbard. You can hear what he had to say about committing to Mississippi State. But other than that, I appreciate you guys. If you aren't, remember, please go subscribe to this channel. And you'll be updated on when we have these things, when we have press conferences, and other Talkin Dawgs reactions, things like that. So go do that if you aren't already. All right, fellas, ladies, everybody out there, appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of the week.